the consistency and the choices you make in your life feeds into the consistency that your performance is. And I think that's something that took me a while to like really believe and recognize. But once I did, was really helpful to me. Part of going back to what we said about being consistent in a match and not getting tilted, it kind of stems from having the same mentality every time you go into a match. And for me, that also was something I wanted to practice in scrim. So my mindset was always like a scrim is a match, or like I want to put the same level of effort and intensity into a practice game as I put into the real match.
Hey everybody, welcome back, or welcome to the Science of Gaming series brought to you by AimLab. I'm Taylor Johnson, and in this episode we speak with Jake Lyon. He's a former professional Overwatch player for the Houston Outlaws and now a caster and live commentator for the league. And we talk about a lot of great topics, and specifically around consistency being the key separator between aspiring pros and professionals, with both their practice and gameplay, team dynamics of what it means to be a great team player, and then a few tips for aspiring pros as they make their journey towards professional gameplay. We hope you enjoy.
Jake, it's great to have you on.
Great to be here. I'm excited to get into the discussion on esports and wellness.
Yeah, likewise, man. Okay, awesome. So if you could, do a brief background on where you've been, kind of, and what you're up to now.
So brief background. My name is Jake. I played for a few seasons in the Overwatch League. Before that, I was an amateur Overwatch player. And now I retired as a professional player from Overwatch, and I am a caster for the league and a live commentator for the professional matches.
Awesome. So we worked together back with the Houston Outlaws, and I was always really impressed with, one, your leadership, and two, just your overall training and preparation and how you handled your business going into game day. And so what I'd love is for you to share on, what are some key elements of that? But before, maybe let's talk about, what do you think it takes to really become pro, to go from that aspiring pro to being a professional?
Something that a lot of people ask about, so something I've kind of thought about a lot. I think really the key difference that makes a player a professional as opposed to like an amateur player, what separates the two, is it's really all about consistency. I think there are a lot of amateur players, younger players, who have like the same peaks of skill that top players have, that the best pros have, right? They've got the potential. There are certain moments where they're playing on that level. But then the professionals, the really, really best players in the whole world, they're just going to do that every single time. And a lot of amateur players are like, they have those big moments. They have those great tournaments a day. They're just on fire. Their team's playing really well. But sometimes when adversity strikes, they don't know how to change the momentum, or they're not going to deliver quite on that same level every time. And that difference seems unimportant. And, it's easy, I think, as an amateur player to look at your best moments and say, I'm good enough already. Like, I'm already on that level. But not see that what's lacking is just the consistency, right? Like, because if you have those great moments, then that means you have the potential to be a consistently great player. But actually realizing that consistency is like the most difficult thing in terms of becoming a pro. That's what makes it so hard, is that consistency is obviously easy to talk about, but there's no like magic formula, I think, to getting it. It's more just like a lot of small things in a huge amount of volume over a long period of time. And that professionalization is what allows people to like really reach that, incredible level that you see in the top of any esport.
Definitely. I mean, we see that in a lot of other professions too, right? Just in any industry, I think consistency is very key. And you touched on a point of, those smaller chunks that then build and compound over time. It's like when we have the conversations around health and wellness, where you build these habits that then turn into a lifestyle. The same thing is on your performance and longevity. It's stacking up those consistent moments, whether however big or however small, but the consistency in that over time, which really leads into your development as, one, a human being, but two, just your professional gameplay. So I really appreciate you saying that. And you brought up a good point too with dealing with adversity. So can you think of an example of when you're in one of those moments where you were facing a lot of adversity and having that consistency in your routine and practice kind of showed up to help you through one of those moments?
I would definitely think like one of the big things that, especially playing at the highest level, it's like the league format is like a long-term format. And a lot of what's played in the amateur level or like the tier 2 scene is a tournament format. And those formats in a way like are really showing the difference between the need of consistency there. Like if you just have a great day on the tournament day, like you win the tournament, like everything is good, right? But when it comes to the Overwatch League, for example, and you're playing this league format with a huge number of games, you have to be able to take, like, let's say a start of the season where, you lose a lot of matches, or you go in a streak and, like you have a bunch of bad matches in a row, your team loses 5-6 matches in a row. And then somehow after that 6th loss, you have to come back and like win the next time. Right. And I think what consistency enables you to do is to kind of let go of the streak, like let go of this idea that, oh, wow, we're losing every game, and actually just play the next game. Maybe not the same way, but with the same mindset of like, you can't be in this mindset of like, we have to win now. Like, you put too much pressure on yourself. You get into this mentality where it's like, this is the only thing that matters is the tomorrow. Right. And then if you lose tomorrow, what, you give up now. It's like, that's it. So you have to be able to simultaneously put a ton of effort in every time you play, but also like be able to like let go of the results. I think that's maybe a key thing, is like not being able to let go of those results if you're struggling, if your team is having a hard time, and focus in on like what can be improved in like a first principles way. Like, let's just play the game better, and like just believe that the wins will come, not being dependent on, oh, we haven't won in so long, I don't feel confident anymore. It has to all stem from a place of like the focus on the game and the focus on just playing well, playing right. Some games you'll play well, but like someone on your team makes a mistake and you lose. And that's like just something you have to deal with as a professional player, especially in a heavily team-based game. But any game that has teams, right, is going to have that, some players have good days, some players have bad days. And you just have to, work with what you're given.
Right. Yeah.
So I think just that reality is so important to be aware of.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that also comes with a level of maturity too. And one of the conversations I've had with DDK, who was a professional CSGO player and now he's a caster and commentator, we had this discussion around outcome dependency, and not being dependent on the outcome, but always gleaning the lessons learned in each match that was played, because there's always wins. Even if there's a loss, you could still win in the sense of gaining more information on how to better yourself, and also learn and to not make the same mistakes. And so what I hear is, definitely within team environments, it's the strength of the team, and one individual could make a mistake and that's okay, but you learn from it. And as a team, you regroup and you collect and you move on to the next game. So being able to clear the previous game, or even the previous, instance within the game itself, and not let that impact you and get tilted, and then allow your team to move forward is really important. So, again, one of the things I really appreciate about you with your preparation is, just how you went about business. So can you talk a little bit about how you viewed practice, and what was your kind of like daily routine, and how you set yourself up for success, and what did your consistency look like?
I mean, the first foundation of the daily routine, I would say, it has to just be one of like health and wellness for yourself, like, sleeping enough, like the stuff that, everyone talks about, but it's easier said than done. Like getting enough sleep and sleeping consistently in like the same hours. And at the same time, like eating, I don't think you have to eat like super healthy, but eating like decently enough, like getting yourself the nutrients you need, not going crazy, and not having like really variable eating. That's probably the biggest thing. Is just like, even if you're not, chicken, rice, and broccoli every single day, just not having like huge variance where some days you're going crazy and picking out and other days you're eating healthy. I think it's more important to like have a baseline that you can just maintain, because when it comes to consistency, like the consistency and the choices you make in your life feeds into the consistency that your performance is. And I think that's something that took me a while to like really believe and recognize, but once I did, was really helpful to me, of being able to, like, part of going back to what we said about being consistent in a match and not getting tilted. It kind of stems from having the same mentality every time you go into a match. And for me, that also was something I wanted to practice in scrim. So my mindset was always like, a scrim is a match, or like I want to put the same level of effort and intensity into a practice game as I put into the real match, so that when it's match time, it's no different. Like I do that every day. So match day is no longer a once or twice a week event. match day is every day we scrim is a match day. And my preparation is the same for every scrim as it is for a match. Like if you're going to have a cup of coffee in the morning and then some G Fuel before the game or whatever, then like you do that every day. You have to find something that is actually sustainable, in all your practice days. You don't have to do it on your days off, let's say. It doesn't have to be literally every day of the week forever, but just not having like some radical change you need to make on match day. I think that is a really, really hard to build consistency if you're going to do it that way, because you just don't have enough match days to actually build consistency. If you're only playing 1 or 2 matches a week, you're not going to be able to build a consistent routine around those 1 or 2 days a week. It's just not how human habits work. So you have to find a habitual routine that works in the regular days, works in the practice days, but applies for the matches as well and allows you to be confident and feeling good for the match.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a really good point, especially I think for, aspiring professional players who want to get to the next level is really, and what I'm hearing is really being intentional around practice and making it count and having a, set agenda of maybe some things you'd want to achieve within that practice that then tie into game day, but it's still the consistency of how you approach day in, day out. It's being a professional. It's being a pro's pro and how you handle business.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that's like thrown around a lot. And I do think there's some negative stereotypes in esports that aren't altogether fair, but are definitely like some people do fall into those traps of like not taking it super seriously, like not being a true professional. I think it's kind of easy to do because esports is still a young scene, and there's a lot of people with like incredible talent who can make it work regardless. But I also think it's easy to get the wrong idea from that. And if you're an aspiring pro, you say, well, this guy doesn't have a consistent routine and he's a pro. But the reality is that not every pro like does these things. But at the same time, my belief is that you give it 10 or 20 years when esports is like more and more professionalized, like the trend we've seen over time in terms of professionalization is really clear. Like, even though it's not 100% penetration at this point of like everyone thinking of things this way, like teams that switch to this system where they're trying to professionalize and trying to, like control people's lifestyles, not in an aggressive way, but in a way to like just maintain consistency, maintain a like sustainable lifestyle. The teams that switch to those things, they don't switch back. Like they see the results, they see the success, and they make it the new normal. So as time goes on, I think we're just going to see more and more and more teams and people go this way. And if you're an aspiring pro, you don't want to be waiting for, oh, well, if only 60% of the pro players are doing that. It's like, you have to wait for it to get to 80 or 90 and then you're still an amateur, right? It's like, I think it really is one of those things that like time goes on, it's going to hit 100% someday or 99% or whatever, where it's just the normal as time goes on. And I think we're already getting to the point where pretty much every team is considering these things. Like it's no longer off the radar. Pretty much every team is looking at this in terms of hiring staff or how they manage their teams, how they manage their players. So if you're an amateur, like don't wait for some team to come along and help you with this. Be there first. Like you can do these things for yourself if you do the research and put in the effort, and it's not actually all that hard, so it's a lot more accessible, I think, than people might realize, and also a lot more beneficial than people might realize.
Yeah, definitely. And I think those are some great points. And I think one of the big ones too that people tend to get caught up on is they think they have to do everything at once. And then it becomes like this huge barrier to get over in terms of like, okay, well, I have to eat right. I have to sleep. I have to get exercise. I have to still practice. I have to still manage my relationships. I have to deal with, streaming if I'm doing that. And it tends to become overwhelming. And I think if you can break it down into smaller chunks, I've always said like BAMs, like what is your bare ass minimum? What's the minimum that you can do on a daily basis that goes back to your point about consistency that you can do over time, but then turns into this total shift in just your way of being and your lifestyle that's both performance related and ties into the longevity piece. And so with that, I mean, do you think that's one of the biggest opportunities in the space right now of, more of having that performance and also the lifestyle, not only for the organizations, but for the players?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think what you said really resonates with me actually about like breaking it down into bite-sized chunks and the minimums, frankly. Like I totally agree. Part of the problem with people wanting to adopt these things is that it's so easy to look on social media and you see like influencers who are like a fitness influencer who's like just really like has like really working on their diet is super tracked and their exercise is super planned and like everything is perfect. And then you feel like if you're somebody who hasn't really gotten started on that, you're like, oh, well, I'm never getting there. So there's no point. But if you know, do some more research and you especially look at people who've had a big change and who weren't like, you know, they don't like, who aren't aspiring to be like the fittest person in the world, but rather just live healthy. And you look at the actual goals that you really have. Like personally, my goal is not to be like, you know, doing an Ironman, right? But I want to be healthy enough to, you know, like live my life the way I want to. Right. And like you said the bare ass minimum for that, it's actually not that hard. Like it's pretty hard to train to do an Ironman, right? That is a really serious goal and need to put a lot of effort in. But the goal of like, I want to live healthy and have a sustainable lifestyle is actually so much more accessible. Like just to get out and move every day, like you just go for a walk, right? You don't have to, you know, go to the gym and have your weight sets and, you know, everything's all planned out. Like go for a walk every day, right? Just get out of the house, get moving, get some cardio in, and like, you know, like just these small things, you do them every day. You know, you don't have to count every single calorie, but you know, you cut out some unhealthy foods, like cut out soda or something in your life, or eat less of this unhealthy food and, you know, reduce your sugar intake. Like small changes actually have a huge consequence, especially when you're getting started. Like that's when the small changes have the biggest impact, is if you're living a really, like you're not managing that part of your lifestyle at all. And then you just apply some little things, like some small fixes, you're actually going to see like huge gains. I like the idea of the newbie gains, but I think it applies in diet and sleep and everything as well. Just some subtle change, like making sure you do something just a little bit better than you were before. You do that over months and months and months, you're going to see significant results. So like you said, not shooting for like something out of reach that feels inaccessible, but rather just bite-sized goals. Like in this month, I'm just going to make sure my sleep is good. And then you're in a good point with your sleep and you're like, you know, wow, I feel pretty good about that. Like I'm going to, you know, try and be more active now. And that's going to be your focus. Okay. Now I'm going to try and adjust my diet a little bit. And like you said, that little by little process gets you so far.
Definitely. And it also depends on the individual, like which point you start at. Because even for a lot of people, they'll be like, whoa, those are three things: sleep, nutrition, and movement. That's a lot. But if you just start with like sleep, and I think starting with the ones that are going to make you feel better the quickest, and that's either nutrition for some people or it's sleep for others. You know, as soon as you can get them starting to feel better on a consistent basis, well, then everything else just kind of comes. Because then they're already feeling better. So then they're more inclined to maybe try something else and then just start stacking those other habits. And I found really it's like with the sleep, it's starting like going to bed 15 minutes earlier, you know, and waking up 15 minutes later. So you get 30 more minutes of sleep. Even just small amounts like that can compound over time and really have good benefit. And like you said about cutting out, limiting sugar or reducing sugar, that's huge. Not only just for, you know, insulin sensitivity and how your body responds to the food that you're eating, but just, you know, spikes in your cognitive output and not crashing after certain points of time. And then also I think what ties into that is just caffeine consumption, which can be a whole other conversation. But these are all things that are really good to consider. So another question I have regarding professional play is what might be some things that are overrated and underrated when it comes to professional play?
You mean in terms of like the lifestyle side or in terms of?
I think just it could be either the lifestyle side and or, you know, gameplay and preparation.
I think for me, what I always felt was underrated is like scrims and practice, like with a team. I think like that is bar none, like the most important thing to becoming a better player, becoming a pro, because one of the challenges in esports is that the natural way to come up is in like a solo or small group environment where you're playing either by yourself with random teammates or with like one or two friends, but still most of the game is like random. And even if your team is organized, like the other team might not be. And it's just very chaotic, right? And I do think that is where you develop your fundamentals. It's where you develop some skills and start to see, wow, I have some promise in this. Like, you know, I'm like in a pretty high rating, like, you know, like sort of, it feels like being a pro is like within reach at least. And once you get to that point though, I feel that the gains from continuing that sort of practice are just heavily diminishing. And the gains from once you're at that point, the gains from actually playing with a team and working in a team environment they just grow and grow and grow. It's exponential rewards. The more you understand how to work with your teammates and how to have success together, the more significant that becomes in your play style. And that is really like the reality of professional competition, especially in a game like Overwatch. I think it could be different in other games that have like a higher individual focus. But at least for Overwatch, and I would imagine probably for any game with like an emphasis on teamwork, and even games that aren't so emphasized on teamwork, you can be sure that at the very top level, that's crucial. That's a differentiator of top players. When everyone has the raw skill, some players make like the smarter plays with their teammates, can set each other up for success. And that really is a better foundation for consistency than relying on individual performance. So when you're reaching that sort of amateur level and starting to think like this could be a real something to sort of seriously invest your time into, and you really want to succeed at and be a pro, then that's where it's all about the team. And your mindset as an individual should be, in my opinion, like basically forget, once you reach that amateur level, your individual skill really isn't so important to like grind and maximize, because you're probably like good enough already. What will give you consistency in terms of like actually having success is that you're relying on your teammates to set each other up for things. And it's no longer a question of like winning a fair fight. You're setting yourself up to have unfair fights, and you're giving yourself advantages constantly. And that's how the game's played at a professional level, right? People don't fight for the sake of fighting. They as much as you can, only take unfair fights. So like you always want the advantage. You never want to be relying on your aim skill. Your aim skill is like the last backup. It's like, wow, things are really desperate, then I go for this sort of big play. That's like a very risk-taking solo play. But until things are desperate, never do that. Like always just winning with the team, winning with teamwork and relying on better team coordination. And I think that's just a skill. Like that's a skill as much as playing the game on an individual basis is a skill. Having the mindset of, yes, I'm doing one thing in the game, but like, where are my teammates at? What are they doing? Is what I'm doing actually the most important thing? Or could I do something just to set up a teammate that would be better? And I think that's a question that if you come up as an amateur, you're just not asking yourself enough. It's a question that the top pros are asking themselves every 3 seconds that they're playing the game. Can I set up my teammate for something? Can I enable somebody else? Is that better than me making a play on my own? And a lot of times the answer is yes. And that's why I think pros think about it so much.
Awesome. So what would be, thanks for that, by the way, that was really cool. So what are like 3 quick points, 3 advice you give to young players, if you had to distill it down to 3 bullet points?
The first advice I would say is think about your runway. And I was just talking with actually an aspiring pro, like amateur player was messaging me this morning, actually asking me about like how to balance school and aspiring to be a pro player. And what I emphasized to him was the concept of the runway. Like, even if you're not the most passionate about school or work or whatever you're doing currently in your life, and esports is where your passion is, like there are realities, you have to support yourself. It has to be sustainable in whatever way it is for you. But the better you do in school, like you said with the bare ass minimums, like just making sure that you're solid, you're set in terms of school and work and like the things that you need to do in your life, that's just going to give you way more runway in terms of becoming an esports player. It takes a long time. It takes a huge amount of grinding, not only practicing the game, but as I said, practicing with a team, having success in a team environment so that you can like show your skills in a broader stage. All those things are the prerequisite to that, is that you actually have the time to continue to invest. And if you go like all in and you stop caring about school, I'm just only going to play the game, I don't care about anything else with the game, then your runway is going to be incredibly short. So even though you might be practicing more, it's actually only going to last a short period of time because it's not sustainable. So you've got to have at least a medium-term mindset, if not long-term, like years ahead. You've got to have at least like, some idea of how you're going to keep doing this for months and months and months. Because if you invested like all your time, 100% of your time right now, the reality is in 3 months, that's going to be just impossible for you to continue to do. But if you invest like 60, 70% of your disposable time right now, and the other time is spent like maintaining your runway, maintaining what else you're doing in your life, keeping it moving, keeping your backup plans moving, then I think not only is that better for you as a person to Like there's so much diminishing returns from doing 100% of your time into anything. It's just like kind of a waste. So that mindset of keeping your runway long is, I think, a really important thing for aspiring pros, especially people in school. Like don't drop out, flunk out just to like try to be pro. You should be able to have some balance in your life and you can still succeed. Like it's not going to stop you from succeeding as a pro. Like I was able to do it, at least being in school and competing as an amateur and going pro.
Awesome.
Aside from runway, the second biggest advice would be like the team advice I said earlier, but just to reemphasize, like at a certain point, you're like at that amateur level, you're feeling like, wow, I could break through to being a pro. Stop worrying about your individual skill and become like the greatest team player ever. Because that is something that people will instantly pick up on. If you do a tryout and you're just silent and you're playing the game and you're doing well, people aren't going to remember you. They aren't going to notice you nearly as well as a player who is setting their teammates up, a player who makes everyone around them better. Like it doesn't matter how good you are, with some exceptions, but like the people who are just insanely good and that's how they win the game are few and far between. But in a professional level, the people who bring their teammates up and like add value in other ways, that's actually like most pro players are like that. And what that does is it creates a circumstance where you're just going to be someone that everyone wants to have on their team, right? And that's another thing you have to think about in terms of becoming a pro. You have to be somebody that people want to have on the team, not only in terms of you're playing at the highest level, like you're good enough, but also you want to be someone that people want to work with, people want to play with, people are excited to play with, people, the manager wants to sign, oh, this guy's going to be a good influence on the team. Like those things matter a lot. And a lot of people, I think in esports, they're young, they haven't had like a real job and stuff, but anyone who's had a job knows like, yeah, that's huge. Like if nobody in the office likes you, if you're like kind of rude to everybody, like it doesn't matter if you're good at your job, people are going to be like, I don't want to work with that guy. She's not nice. Like, so if it's everything in life there's a human element to it. And it's easy to forget that in esports, but that's something I'd emphasize, like the team play, the human aspect to being on an esports team. Honestly, those would be my two pieces of advice. I would say like the team play advice and then keeping your runway long and keeping your life balanced.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great points, especially the human element, not getting lost in the digital aspect of the gameplay, understanding like the team composition is so important to have everybody gel well together and to, as a collective, everybody raise up. Awesome. Thanks for that. So what I want to do now is just some rapid fire quick hitters. So I'm going to ask you a question. First thing that comes to mind, just answer. We'll keep it short. Go punchy.
Sure.
So I wish I learned this before becoming a pro.
Learn this before becoming a pro. I would just say like the public facing side, but it's something that almost impossible to learn before really experiencing it, but just how to deal with, lots of people knowing who you are and having expectations of you, from the fan side, from the organization side. Yeah, that's something that is a big challenge and something that new pros should just be aware there's going to be a learning experience. Don't feel like embarrassed or disappointed because you mess up. Just learn and grow and like have the mindset that that's just another skill that you can learn and you'll be fine.
Awesome. It all comes down to?
It all comes down to preparation, I'd say.
Okay. Pressure comes from?
Inside.
Success looks like?
Self-satisfaction.
Cool. The most worthwhile game and investment you've made?
Most worthwhile game investment. What do you mean by that?
Whether it was piece of equipment, whether it was, something along those lines. Whatever.
Oh yeah, a high hertz monitor. That's actually genuinely. There's a lot of things you can spend money on. Like you can buy chairs and mice and keyboards, and there's a lot of ways you can spend money on gaming. But the one like piece of technology that just makes the games easier is a high hertz monitor. 144 is fine, 240 is better, but just diminishing returns. But it just, your eye perceives things more smoothly, and it's just like your brain can tell what's going on the screen quicker and easier. And that's just one of those things that the advantage is impossible to explain. You plan it for a week and you'll realize.
Yeah. All right, last one is, in the last 3 years, what's a new belief, behavior, or habit that's most improved your gaming and life?
I think letting go of outcomes. That's really the key, has been letting go of outcomes. Funnily enough for me, I think just before I retired in the Overwatch League, I kind of let go of like, okay, well, I kind of realized I want to move on and try casting, just go that way for some time. So I was less focused on the outcomes. I actually had some of my best performances ever, just because I was like, I'm just going to go play my best. And that's all I was thinking about going into the match. I wasn't worried about whether we would win or lose, as strange as that sounds. But the irony of that is that I realized letting go of whether we're winning or losing. Are we behind 2-0? Okay, well, I'm going to go play my best on map 3. Like, that mindset is going to make you win, which is a strange thing to realize, that letting go of winning makes you win, or makes you, the more you can let go of the outcome, the more likely you're going to get the outcome. That's the irony of it.
Awesome. Well, Jake, I really appreciate you coming on. You want to give any shout outs, social media links, where can people find more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter at JakeOW, same tag for Instagram. You can also find my YouTube under the same name. YouTube and Twitch are Jake_OW. But yeah, so I'm creating content, doing lots of stuff on social media and Twitch and YouTube. So check me out there.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. It's fun.
Yeah. Cheers.
Hey, everybody. We hope you enjoyed that episode with Jake. Please be sure to check out his social media links where you can find more about what he's up to, and also check out aimlab.gg where you could check out our blog and learn more about previous guests that we've had on and upcoming episodes. Thanks and have a good day.